Late afternoon settled over Shanghai when Jannik Sinner walked into the press room with the same composure he had shown on court dispatching Daniel Altmaier. Efficient. Surgical. No hint of fatigue despite his recent winning run. What lit up the headlines, however, wasn't just his tennis. It was what he said. Reporters expected talk of tactics and the next opponent. Instead, the conversation turned to the three names defining the men's game right now: Novak Djokovic, Alexander Zverev, and Carlos Alcaraz. "It's a shame Carlos isn't here," Sinner began, offering a half-smile and a tone that felt unmistakably sincere. "He's the player everyone wants to see. He brings something special to every tournament, and his absence changes the energy a bit." Simple words, but they resonated. Alcaraz's withdrawal from the Shanghai Masters had already reignited debate about the calendar, wear and tear, and the limits of a season that barely allows a breath. Hearing that acknowledgement from his closest generational rival carried a different weight. Sinner and Alcaraz have evolved from teenage promise into one of the sport's reference rivalries. Quiet calculation versus explosive creativity. Each meeting reshapes perception and momentum. Yet beneath the rivalry lies a respect that supports the spectacle rather than fracturing it. Sinner conveyed it without posture or barbs, just admiration and a sense of shared purpose that distinguishes this new wave of players. "When a player like Carlos is missing, fans notice," he added. "But that's the nature of the calendar. We all have to choose. It's a long season, and you have to listen to your body." The room fell silent. No cliché, just diagnosis. The tour is relentless. Back-to-back weeks, intercontinental jumps, surface transitions without real recovery windows. For Sinner, who has learned to manage his load, Alcaraz's decision to skip Shanghai wasn't weakness. It was maturity. Then came the pivot. A reporter cited Zverev's recent claim that tournaments are slowing courts to favor baseliners, naming Sinner and Alcaraz specifically. The Italian didn't blink. "Neither Carlos nor I decide how courts are made," he said. "Our job is to adapt. I've played great on fast courts too, and variety makes us better." No trench warfare, no defensiveness, just elegant de-escalation and a quiet reminder that greatness is measured by adjustment, not excuses. The Sinner, Alcaraz, Djokovic triangle has become the emotional axis of the tour. Zverev's frustration reveals another layer: the handover underway. 4 years, Djokovic stood alone as a monument to longevity and control. Now the rise of two 20-somethings is redrawing the hierarchy, tournament by tournament. When Sinner spoke about the Serb, his register shifted again. "It's a privilege to share this time with him. Seeing him compete like this inspires us. He's a legend. Every time I face him, I learn." It wasn't lip service. Those who tracked Sinner's late 2023 surge know that his clashes with Djokovic served as a forge. From promise to certainty. Outside, Shanghai's humidity gave way to neon while highlight reels played on loop. The discourse had moved beyond ball speed and first serve percentage to Sinner's handling of the noise. No grandstanding, no rancor, just authority in a low voice. That discreet magnetism, the kind that grows with every win and every measured quote, explains why, with Alcaraz absent, it's Sinner who keeps the flame burning bright on Asia's biggest stage. The subtext remains. Zverev's complaint didn't appear in a vacuum. Fatigue is real among profiles who feel the ecosystem now rewards dominant baseline patterns. Sinner's answer, anchored in adaptability, reframes it. The field is the same for everyone. The difference lies in how you move through it. Meanwhile, Djokovic advances, and the sense of an era collision intensifies by the day. The veteran still setting the standard, the apprentice now operating with a leader's pulse, the notable absentee whose shadow stretches across the draw. Shanghai feels poised for a major chapter. Want the full tactical breakdown of Sinner's post-match, his complete response to Zverev, and the live draw projection from Shanghai? Subscribe to World News Tennis, hit the bell, and don't miss our next on-site update. Night fell over Shanghai, and with it came the inevitable anticipation that always follows when eras collide. Jannik Sinner's words from the press room had already gone viral, celebrated for their composure, dissected for their subtext. While most players might have stirred controversy or fed rivalries, he had done the opposite, turning tension into respect. It wasn't just diplomacy, it was leadership. Across social media, clips of his remarks spread with captions like, "Class," "The future of tennis," and "This is how you handle pressure." For fans, it was a glimpse of a new kind of champion, one who could win hearts without theatrics. But inside the locker room, the ripples ran deeper. Players spoke quietly about the emerging hierarchy of the tour: Djokovic, Alcaraz, Sinner, a trinity that now defined the sport's present and future. And yet, even amid the noise, Sinner himself seemed untouched by it. When asked again about Zverev's complaints on slow courts, his reply was the same: measured, calm, final. You can't control surfaces, only your game. That sentence encapsulated what made him different. Where others saw conspiracies or favoritism, he saw adaptation. Where frustration erupted, he found rhythm. The following evening, as Djokovic prepared for his own quarterfinal, the cameras caught him smiling when a journalist asked about Sinner's rise. "He's doing things right," the Serb said. "He learns fast. I've seen myself in him at times. His focus, his consistency. That's dangerous for everyone else." It wasn't flattery. It was recognition. The same kind of recognition Federer once gave to Djokovic years ago, the passing glance of acknowledgement from one generation to the next. Meanwhile, Carlos Alcaraz, training thousands of miles away, remained silent. No interviews, no statements. Only training footage leaked from Tokyo. Powerful serves, endless forehands, sweat, intensity. The Spaniard was absent from Shanghai physically, but his presence hung over every discussion. Every question to Sinner or Djokovic circled back to him. What would have happened if Carlos had been here? That absence created a vacuum, one that Sinner was slowly, quietly filling. In the days that followed, Sinner's march through the tournament became an exercise in discipline. No showmanship, no drama, just relentless execution. He dismantled opponents with a kind of precision that looked mechanical yet poetic, each rally stripped of excess, each point a statement of control. Commentators noted that his emotional management, once his greatest weakness, had turned into his signature strength. And every time he was asked about his goals, his answer remained constant: to play my best every day. Nothing more. No predictions. No comparisons. Just a focus so narrow it bordered on stoic. The Italian press began calling him Il Metronomo, the metronome, for his consistency. Asian broadcasters, however, found a different metaphor: the silent storm. Because that's what he was: calm on the surface, devastating underneath. As Sinner advanced to the semi-finals, the inevitable storyline took shape. Djokovic versus Sinner, student versus master. A rematch not just of skill but of philosophy. For Djokovic, it was another chance to reaffirm that time still bent to his will. For Sinner, it was proof that he no longer needed anyone's validation to belong at the top. And for the fans, it was pure theater. In the build-up, journalists revisited the words that had started it all. Zverev's accusations. The debates about Alcaraz's absence. The endless calendar discussions. And in the middle of it all stood Sinner. Calm, poised, unbothered. His preparation before that match became symbolic. While others trained aggressively, Sinner spent nearly 40 minutes in stillness, breathing exercises, eyes closed, headphones on, body motionless. When he finally rose, there was no intensity in his walk, only focus. His coach described it best. He's learned to move like water, never forcing, always flowing. That was the man stepping into the arena that night. As the crowd filled the Qizhong Stadium, you could feel it, the soundless electricity before something historic. The chants alternated between Noel and Jannik. Generations split by allegiance but united by awe. When the players walked out, the lights dimmed, the noise swelled, and in that instant, tennis felt cinematic again. The legend versus the air. The unshakable versus the ascending. And for a brief second, as Sinner looked across the net, there was no fear, only clarity. He had waited for this. The world was watching, but his eyes betrayed nothing. Just calm. Just purpose. He bounced the ball once, twice, 3 times. Then the serve came, clean, silent, perfect. The new era had officially begun. The semi-final in Shanghai unfolded like a cinematic duel between discipline and defiance. From the very first exchange, the rhythm felt different. Not chaotic, not desperate, but measured. Both men moved as if playing inside each other's thoughts. Novak Djokovic, the architect of control, tested every inch of the court. Jannik Sinner, the student-turned-rival, matched him stroke for stroke, absorbing pressure like a wall made of calm. For the first 10 minutes, no one in the arena dared to blink. Djokovic probed with depth, variation, and patience. Sinner responded with precision, redirecting angles with his trademark economy of movement. There were no wasted gestures, no emotional explosions, just intent. Then, at 4-4 in the first set, came the rally that defined the night. 26 shots, stretching across time and tension, until Sinner struck a backhand down the line. Surgical, cold, unstoppable. Djokovic froze. The crowd erupted. The Italian raised his eyes for a fraction of a second, expression unreadable, before walking back to the baseline. That was his language. Results, not reactions. He took the first set 7-5, but no one in Shanghai celebrated too soon, because everyone knew what came next. Djokovic never loses the second act. The Serbian came back like a storm reloaded. Shorter rallies, sharper serves, deeper returns. At 3-2, he broke Sinner's rhythm and screamed to the heavens, the sound echoing like thunder inside the arena. The crowd leaned forward. The Empire had struck back. Sinner didn't panic. His breathing stayed even, his eyes fixed on the strings between points. But Djokovic's pressure was relentless, tactical, almost surgical in its cruelty. The second set ended 6-4, and the scoreline was level again. By then, sweat poured down their faces. The court became a chessboard where every move carried consequences. The match had turned into a trial of identity, between Novak's experience and Jannik's evolution. Old power versus new order. At 5-5 in the final set, tension reached breaking point. Sinner saved 2 match points, one with an ace that tore the air apart, another with a rally that seemed to defy time itself. When Djokovic's final forehand clipped the net, the Italian clenched his fists, finally letting out a roar that silenced everything else. Moments later, at 6-5, Sinner broke serve again, with the same backhand that had started it all. Match over. The roar that followed wasn't just celebration. It was release. Djokovic walked to the net, smiling. No words, just a handshake. Firm, long, human. A moment that said everything. Acknowledgement, not defeat. Because even legends recognize when the next chapter has begun. When the microphone reached him, Sinner's voice was soft. It's always an honor to face Novak. Matches like this, they make you better. Then, with a small grin, he added, I hope Carlos watched it. That single line detonated across the tennis world. Not as provocation, but as prophecy. Because somewhere, in another time zone, Carlos Alcaraz was watching, training, waiting, preparing. The triangle of tennis was complete again. Djokovic, the symbol. Alcaraz, the spark. Sinner, the bridge. The following day, the Shanghai skyline glowed beneath confetti as Sinner lifted the trophy, his second Masters 1000 of the year. The applause wasn't just for a champion. It was for an idea, that humility and precision could still win in a world addicted to spectacle. He looked up, scanning the crowd, and when asked later what he thought of, he said simply, all of them. Novak. Carlos. Everyone who pushes me to be better. That's what made this victory different. It wasn't conquest, it was continuity. A bridge between eras built not on ego, but on respect. And as the tour moved on to Europe, the narrative was already rewriting itself. The age of rivalry had evolved into something purer, a trinity of greatness. Djokovic's precision, Alcaraz's fire, Sinner's calm. 3 men, 1 era, shaping the identity of modern tennis. The story of Shanghai 2025 didn't end with a handshake. It redefined men's tennis. Because when Jannik Sinner walked off that court, trophy in hand, the sport felt different. Not just because he won, but because of how he did it. Relentless. Completely in control of himself and the moment. In the weeks that followed, the tour moved across Europe, but the echoes of Shanghai refused to fade. Every headline, every analysis, every locker room conversation revolved around the same question. Was this the moment the torch finally passed? Veterans called it evolution, not overthrow. Analysts spoke of a changing rhythm, a smoother transition between eras rather than the abrupt endings of the past. Because what Djokovic, Alcaraz, and Sinner represent isn't rivalry born from hostility, it's continuity through excellence. In the digital age of noise and provocation, Sinner's quiet authenticity became revolutionary. He didn't shout, he didn't posture, he simply performed, and the world listened. His words after Shanghai went viral not because they were dramatic, but because they felt true. "We play because we love the fight," he said before leaving China. "Because we respect it." That sentence became the quote of the season. It summed up everything tennis fans had been craving: passion without chaos, competition without hatred, greatness without arrogance. And in that sense, Sinner had become more than a champion. He was now a symbol. At the same time, Carlos Alcaraz, training back in Spain, watched the Shanghai replay in silence. He had been criticized for skipping the event, accused of prioritizing rest over responsibility. But after Sinner's victory and his public words of empathy, the tone changed. Suddenly, Alcaraz wasn't seen as absent. He was seen as waiting. Waiting for the right moment, the right surface, the right stage to return. Behind closed doors, those close to Alcaraz said the motivation had never been stronger. The idea of facing Sinner again, now a champion forged in battles with Djokovic, ignited a new kind of fire. It wasn't about revenge. It was about restoring balance. Because in the triangle of men's tennis, each player defines the other. Djokovic, experience. Sinner, discipline. Alcaraz, instinct. Together they form what fans are calling the Trinity era. An age defined not by dominance of one man, but by the coexistence of three philosophies. The ATP, sensing the momentum, began marketing it almost immediately. Posters, trailers, highlight packages, all centered around this new narrative of generational harmony. Yet beneath the surface, tension brewed. Because tennis, as much as it celebrates unity, thrives on conflict. And fans knew, the next Alcaraz-Sinner meeting would be more than a match, it would be a reckoning. But for now, Sinner stood alone at the summit, bridging past and future with rare composure. Djokovic had acknowledged him. Alcaraz had praised him. And the tennis world had crowned him the man of the moment. Still, what made his story resonate wasn't the power of his forehand or the speed of his rise. It was his humanity. He didn't claim to have arrived. He didn't talk about destiny or dominance. He just said, "There's still more to learn." And maybe that's why his victory mattered more than any title this season. Because it reminded everyone, players, fans, and organizers alike, that true greatness isn't a finish line. It's a journey of adaptation. The new era of tennis has officially begun, and it's being written by three names: Djokovic, Sinner, and Alcaraz. But how long can Novak hold his throne? And when these three meet again, who will truly lead the next generation? Stay with World News Tennis for the upcoming ATP Finals analysis, tactical deep dives, and exclusive breakdowns of the next great rivalry. Subscribe, like, and activate notifications, because history in tennis is no longer a memory. It's happening right now.